Hi, welcome to the Property Gurus. We recently completed the full renovation of a 1930s semi-detached house. And this video is the first in a series that looks at all aspects of that project. Today's video looks at the original property that we purchased. We'll walk you through why we thought it was a good buy, how we thought we could add value, and hopefully we'll give you some ideas and tips and understanding as to how to go about assessing an old, dilapidated, not very attractive property and be able to have the vision to see what you could create by changing, renovating and updating. So later in this video, we'll take you on a tour of the original house. You'll be able to see all of the features that were turning off buyers and all of the issues that needed to be addressed. This was, without doubt, the worst property on a very good road, and we've turned it into one of the best properties, if not the best. And we'll walk you through that whole process as to how you, with your property or your project or your development, how you'll be able to achieve the same goal of taking something that's really not working and is stuck in the dark ages into a property that is setting a trend and moving things forward and really creating a wow factor for people when they come into that house. Our philosophy has always been to try to create $1 million look on a budget. So we've come up with creative and innovative ways of doing things that really give the wow factor without breaking the bank. In terms of changing the look, feel, flow, and value of a property, there are three main ways of doing that. The first is to renovate the property. The second is to remodel the property. And the third is to extend the property. Most homeowners don't want to get involved in any sort of renovation. They will if they have to, but if they can afford it, they'd like to buy something that's already been done. It's a lot of hassle, it's a lot of grief. Most people don't have time or the energy to do that. So you can add value through renovation. Remodeling is basically changing the existing position of the property. So that might be removing some walls or changing the layout or just redesigning the property. So moving a bathroom into a bedroom and vice versa, repositioning the kitchen or adding some parking. The third way of adding value is to extend a property. So that is adding additional floor space, and that can be on the ground floor. You can add side and rear extensions, or it could be in the loft, or it could be a combination. You may be able to do multi-story extensions. So that's the three ways of adding value to a property. Just before we move on to the tour, we thought it was worth having a look at the estate agent's particulars and the plan of the property that's provided online, as this is usually the first introduction that everybody has to a new old property. So there's a number of points to note here. The first is the aspect of the garden. They always provide a compass which tells you where north is. So this garden is pointing in the opposite direction to north, so south facing, which is great. Everybody wants a south facing garden, so that's a really attractive feature. The second point is that there's an old garage in this garden. You can see here, this is the arrangement that was built back in the 1930s when the house was constructed. Nobody wants a garden with a garage in it anymore, so that was to go. The next notable point is there's an extension on this property. You can see here there's a small area of additional floor space which is housing the kitchen, but although they've added the extra space, they haven't remodeled the interior of the house. So you can see that the dining room and what was the old galley kitchen are still separate spaces. They haven't taken that wall out. So that told us that the layout of this property was still a bit too old-fashioned. In terms of the upstairs space, it was a fairly standard layout. Let's have a look at the property from the outside. The first thing that struck us was that it is semi-detached. Semi-detached houses are inherently more appealing for buyers and usually have a higher price. In terms of potential, the front garden was still being used as a planting area, which was unusual for this road as most of the other houses had converted theirs to parking areas, so that represented potential upside for us. The windows in the property were old aluminium double glazed units with ornate sections at the top. They weren't presenting well as they had a brown surround, but we were hopeful that they could be salvaged and made to look a lot more attractive with some careful renovation. And it was a similar story for the front door, which looked a bit tired as well. Moving on to the rear of the property, you can see down the side passage, this house still had the old garage that was built in the 1930s. These structures are prefab, made from concrete with asbestos roofs, and are far too small for modern day vehicles. In fact, it'd be pretty tricky to get a vehicle down between the two houses now. Here's a close-up of the garage. You can see it's in poor condition, and actually the way that the whole area was constructed, the garden was restricted because the wall was cut back at 45 degrees to allow the vehicle to enter the garage doors. So this was taking up a disproportionate amount of the back garden. Here's a picture of the back garden, and the grass area is about the same width as the garage area. So half of the garden is dominated by this monolithic, ugly, old concrete structure. So really killing the garden space. And you can see from this photo that was a dead area down the bottom of the garden where the garage had finished that was pretty much unusable. So massive opportunity to remove that garage and really open up this garden. The other thing to note at the rear of the property was that there was a small extension, 3 metres by 3 metres, that had been built a number of years ago. Not very attractive looking, but still intact, and something that we needed to investigate whether we were going to retain that or remove it and try and make the extension bigger. Moving inside the property, this is the view of the stairs from the front door. It's quite an attractive vista, but it just doesn't look right at the moment. All of the woodwork has been varnished, so is brown and really unattractive, and the carpet just isn't doing anything for this space at all. The other factor that's difficult to see here is there was thick flock wallpaper on the walls and the ceiling, which was really giving an oppressive feel to the whole entry hall. But there was potential to convert this very easily into something spectacular. Moving into the living room at the front of the property, you can see there's an old fireplace that is made from granite inside and has a wood surround. Again, the brown varnish is letting it down and really making it feel a bit grim and unimpressive. And you can see the same flock wallpaper that's been applied to all of the walls. Really thick, really heavy, really old-fashioned. This photo is from the sales particulars, so is a bit more impressive. They've got better lighting, makes the room look quite modern. It didn't feel like that, and that's why we've included the first photo, because that gives you more of a flavour as to what it was like. Some of the positives in this room: the coving around the top of the walls is in very good condition. There is a ceiling rose that's been installed with a hanging chandelier light from it, and the woodwork, although it is varnished, is all in very good condition, really solid, quite large, and massive potential to convert that to something that looks really nice. The carpet is clearly grim and needs to go, but overall lots of potential to quickly and easily change the feel of this room to something very modern and upmarket. Moving on to the dining room, we'll start off again with a photograph that we took, which gives you a good representation of what it was like. It was dark, it was dingy, it was depressing. You can see that the double doors at the rear of the property, the glass on the right hand side has blown and needs to be replaced, and the whole room had that flock wallpaper that we've seen in the previous rooms, so it really made it dark and oppressive. Switching over to the estate agent's photo, you can see similar features to the living room. We've got coving around the top of the walls, we've got ceiling rose with a chandelier, and we've got the same skirting board that looks in good condition. This next room was adjacent to the dining room and led through to the kitchen, and was a narrow corridor style room that really didn't work and didn't serve any purpose at all. So that was one of the clear things for us to change in terms of remodeling this structure. Moving through to the kitchen, again this is our photograph, which gives you a better representation of what it was actually like. It looks decent from this photo, but actually it wasn't. It was a very cheap kitchen. It had very cheap worktops. The tiles on the walls and the floor were made of a very cheap ceramic, and everything had a very dated, old-fashioned feel about it. Here's the estate agent's photo, and you can see one of the issues in this kitchen is that there was a back door that was breaking up the work surface area, and that meant that the small kitchen was made even smaller because you had less usable space. Moving upstairs, you can see that the varnished wood look continues throughout, making everything feel really old and dated. And the flock wallpaper has also continued to be run on every single surface on the walls and the ceilings. On the plus side, you can see some coving, which does give some potential. This is the view from the hallway of the 3 bedrooms of the property. This is the bathroom. Again, the estate agents have managed to make it look half decent. It didn't look and feel like that at all when you walked into it in reality. But as you can see, there's no bath. It has an adapted shower, and it also had the boiler in the bathroom. You can't see it. It's on the far left-hand side of this photo, but there was a cupboard with a gravity-fed boiler in there. Here's our photo of the rear bedroom. It's a good-sized double bedroom, but you can see that the double glazing has blown in a number of the units, so all of that will need to be replaced. If we jump over to the estate agent's version of this room, you can see that there was some built-in wardrobes that have been constructed. And even though the louvre doors were varnished and looked pretty old-fashioned and grim, the structure of what was built was actually quite good. So we started looking and thinking about whether or not we could just simply replace those doors and keep the same usable storage space, but with a modern look and a much nicer feel. Moving on to the master bedroom. This room looks quite nice in the estate agent's photo here, but actually when you visited the property, there was a damp area to the top left-hand corner of the bay window. So you can't really make that out because they've done a good job in taking this photo, but it was clearly evident upon inspection. And you can see here when we eventually stripped away all of the flock wallpaper that had been put around the window bay, there was some significant water ingress and quite a lot of damage and mould around that old window. Final room in the property was a relatively small box room that was full of junk. Nothing really to note in that room at this stage. The reason we liked this property is that we could see an immediate impact from a renovation perspective. The house had been in the same ownership for a long time, over 60 years, was tired, was old and needed to be modernised and updated. The current state of the property was putting buyers off. People couldn't see beyond the old furniture, the old kitchens, the really old layout, the wallpaper that was on the walls and the ceilings. It was really turning people off. It was not an attractive property. So renovating this property was definitely going to add value and definitely going to increase its attraction in the market. So we saw the opportunity to add value through renovation. There was also the potential to add value by remodeling. So we knew that if we could take a wall out and change the layout and the flow of the property, that would add to its attractiveness and increase the value of the property. If you can spot an opportunity to remove a wall or change the layout of the property, then that will improve the flow, make it more modern, it will appeal to more people and will increase the value. We saw the opportunity here to remove a wall that was situated between the dining room and the room that was situated in front of the kitchen that wasn't really serving any sort of purpose. We saw that removing that wall would create an open plan kitchen, dining, living area. That's exactly what most people want these days. So we knew that taking this wall out would open up the house, change the flavour and the look of the property, and would definitely increase the value. We also saw the opportunity to remodel the front of the house and the back of the house. At the front of the house, there was no parking. Everybody needs parking, off-street parking. On this particular road, all of the houses had off-street parking. So the spot in front of this house was being used by other people to park. So we knew that changing that to hard standing that you could park on with increased the value. And in the rear of the property, there was a large garage with an asbestos roof that was out of date, not fit for purpose, and had ruined the look of the garden. It was about half the size of the garden. So we knew that removing that and changing the area back to garden would really increase the attractiveness for families and also the value of the property. The final factor in terms of adding value is to extend the property. This property had great potential for extension. It already had a small extension on the back that was historic, so we knew that we could extend the cross further and make it larger if we wanted to, and the loft space was absolutely enormous. It had a really high ridge line, which meant that we could add a really large loft conversion if we wanted to, and if that was going to make sense economically. So this property ticked a lot of the boxes. Great location, good aspect. It was a nice semi-detached property. It had massive potential for remodeling and renovation and also extension if we decided that there was enough value in the property to do that. So this video has been an introduction to the renovation, remodel and extension of the 1930s property that we completed recently. Hopefully it's given you some ideas and shown you how to go about approaching old properties, thinking of things in a different way, how you could change the flow and the feel and the presentation of properties with simple ideas. There's lots more videos to come. We're going to be picking up all the different aspects, looking at heating systems, flooring, bathrooms, kitchen, garden, parking, everything you can imagine. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already and give us a thumbs up. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video. We've been the Property Gurus. Thanks for watching. See you soon.